The burgundy wallpaper of my parents' living room seems to pulse with each note of White Christmas floating from the stereo. Mother insists on playing Bing Crosby every the 25th of December, just as she insists the artificial Douglas fir must stand exactly 6 inches from the bay window. Perfect symmetry matters in the Foster household. I shift on the Italian leather sofa, its cold surface refusing to warm beneath me. The room sparkles with crystal ornaments and silver garlands that Mother special orders from a boutique in Vermont. No multicolored lights allowed, no tinsel, no homemade decorations that might disturb the carefully curated elegance. Paris. Madison's squeal pierces the room as she waves a thick envelope. Mom, Dad, this is incredible. My older sister clutches a first-class ticket to her chest, her perfectly manicured nails flashing red against the crisp paper. A career-building opportunity. She reads from the card. $3,500 for the ultimate networking experience. Mother beams, her silver hair catching the morning light. We know how hard you've worked this year, darling. You deserve every penny. My hands tremble slightly as I look down at the small package in my lap, wrapped in the same silver paper as Madison's envelope. The box is light, barely weighing anything at all. I carefully pull back the tape, preserving the paper the way Mother taught us. Just tear it, Claire Bear, Madison says with a laugh that sounds like breaking glass. It's not like you'll reuse it. Inside sits a book with a cartoon woman on the cover, clinging to a sparkly wand. The title screams in hot pink letters, How to Be an Adult, a Guide for Late Bloomers. We thought it might help you finally get serious about life, dear. Mother's voice carries that familiar note of disappointment, wrapped in a thin veneer of concern. 32 is rather old to still be playing with children all day. Madison leans over, her designer perfume clouding the air between us. It's just what you need, Claire Bear. Maybe it'll help you find a real career. She pats my knee with the same condescending touch she uses on her daughter Ellie when the girl asks too many questions. Father checks his watch, already angling toward the television where the pregame show flickers silently. The Bills are playing in 20 minutes, he announces to no one in particular. My throat tightens as memories flood in, sharp and clear as icicles. Madison's voice on the phone last spring. It's just a temporary thing, Claire. $3,000, tops. I'll pay you back next month. Then again in summer, another few thousand, you're my sister. That's what family does. And again in fall. Just 2 more thousand, I promise. $9,000. 3 years of temporary loans that Madison never mentions anymore. The endless weekends watching Ellie while Madison networked at spas and wine tastings. The emergency babysitting calls at midnight when her dates ran long. No payment offered, no real thanks given. I worked 2 jobs to pay for my teaching degree, while Madison got checks from our parents. Education is expensive, they said then. We have to prioritize. Your little preschool thing is cute, Mother told me last month at dinner. But when are you going to find a real job? Something with a future? The cocoa in my favorite reindeer mug has gone cold, but I lift it to my lips anyway. The ceramic trembles against my teeth as I force a polite smile. Thank you for thinking of me. Madison's already moved on, showing Father the Paris itinerary he won't remember. Mother adjusts a crystal angel that hasn't moved. The room sparkles with expensive decorations that mean nothing at all. From the corner of my eye, I catch Ellie watching me. My niece sits cross-legged by the tree, her dark eyes serious beneath her bangs. 7 years old and already learning how this family works. Who matters? Who doesn't? Who gets Paris and who gets self-help books with cartoon covers? I set the mug down carefully on a silver coaster, making sure it doesn't leave a ring. Everything in its proper place. Everything perfectly arranged. But as I watch the fire catch the crystal ornaments, throwing rainbows across the burgundy walls, something shifts inside my chest. A quiet click, like a key turning in a lock. This is the last Christmas I'll be treated this way. The thought comes soft but certain, settling into my bones with the weight of truth. I don't make a scene. I don't cry or yell or throw the book across the room. Instead, I sip my cold cocoa and smile and wait for Father to turn on his football game. But I know, with a clarity that feels like winter sunlight, that everything is changed. They just don't know it yet. 2 days after the dinner, I was at home, preparing the counterattack. My apartment smells like leather and shoe polish, an odd comfort after the cloying perfume of Mother's living room. The wooden stairs creak beneath my feet as I climb to my small space above Antonio's shoe repair. Each step feels lighter than the last, as if Christmas dinner's weight drops away with the growing distance. Inside, I pull the copper kettle from the stove and pour steaming water over a chamomile tea bag. Steam rises in lazy curls while I reach under my bed, fingers searching until they brush against the spiral binding of my grandmother's old account book. The ledger's pages whisper as I smooth them flat on my kitchen table. Red ink chronicles a story my family refuses to see. The 15th of March, emergency loan to Madison, $3,000. The 22nd of April, visa application fees, $800. The 7th of June, short-term help, $2,500. My hand trembles as I add today's date and a single word: enough. The numbers blur before my eyes. $9,000. 3 years of temporary loans that Madison swore she'd repay. I flip through my banking app, cross-referencing deposits and withdrawals. A notation catches my eye. A transfer Madison labeled Visa Fees matches the date of her Instagram post from Blue Mountain Spa Resort. My phone buzzes. A text from Ellie. Aunt Claire, why did Mommy say you had to watch me last week because she was at a work dinner? I saw her pretty dress when she went to meet Thomas. The ceramic mug nearly slips from my fingers. Thomas, Madison's tennis instructor, the emergency that pulled me away from Sarah's retirement party. Another buzz. The family group chat springs to life. Madison, urgent family dinner tomorrow night. Need everyone there. Mother, of course, darling, 6 p.m. sharp. Father, we'll bring the good scotch. Madison, Claire Bear, could use your help with summer tuition. Just $2,800 this time. We can discuss tomorrow. The ledger's pages crackle as my fingers clench. Before I can respond, my phone lights up with Sarah's call. Don't you dare reply yet, she says instead of hello. Meet me at Common Grounds in 20 minutes. I grab my keys and leave the apartment. 20 minutes later, the coffee shop's warmth wraps around me like a blanket as Sarah slides a steaming latte across the table. Her silver hair catches the afternoon light, reminding me of winter mornings in my classroom when the sun hits the craft glitter just right. Your sister's about as subtle as a marching band, Sarah says, stirring her Americano. Robert told me about the Christmas book. That family of yours. She shakes her head. Did I ever tell you about how boundaries saved his life? I lean forward as Sarah shares Robert's story of breaking free from toxic family patterns. My colleague's journey from family scapegoat to respected art teacher rings familiar bells in my chest. The bell above the door chimes and Mrs. Bedford, my landlord, waves as she collects her regular order. She pauses at our table. Claire, dear, I've been meaning to talk to you. That weekend craft class you did for my granddaughter was wonderful. Would you consider a regular arrangement? Maybe trade some rent reduction for teaching? Before I can answer, a harried-looking woman approaches, juggling a coffee and a bright purple folder. Miss Foster? I'm Jessica, Lily's mom from your preschool class. I heard through the grapevine that Enchanted Events is closing down. They were supposed to handle Lily's birthday next month. I just replied that I will check everything first and then call her again. I thanked Sarah and went home. An hour later, after I came home, my phone buzzed again. Madison's name flashes on the screen, but I silence it. Instead, I pull up my email and begin typing. Dear Madison, I've attached a complete record of the $9,000 in loans provided over the last 3 years. I care about you deeply, but I can no longer offer financial support without a formal repayment plan. The words flow easier than I expected. I outline clear babysitting boundaries next, specific hours, standard rates, no last-minute emergencies unless there's genuine crisis. My hands steady as I type, strength flowing from somewhere deep and quiet. A gift bag sits beside my chair, carefully wrapped this morning. Inside, a handmade fairy door for Ellie's room and a note promising special aunt-niece craft days. She won't be caught in this mess. My laptop screen glows as I research local business license requirements. The city's small business development page bookmarks easily enough. A template for a business plan waits in my downloads folder. The first text arrives before I finish my latte. Madison's words splash across my screen in all caps. How dare you demand money from family? And in that way, tomorrow's dinner reservation was completely canceled. Mother's voicemail follows, her voice trembling with practiced tears. Claire Elizabeth, I cannot believe you would turn your back on your sister like this. After everything we've done for you. Father's email lands in my inbox with his usual corporate efficiency. Your behavior will cause permanent damage to your standing in this family. Consider carefully before continuing down this path. My finger hovers over their contact information. 2 quick taps, and their numbers vanish behind a 48-hour block. The screen dims to black, reflecting my face. My chin lifts slightly, shoulders squaring. Outside, snow begins to fall, dusting the winter bare trees with possibilities. My phone stays silent on my table, but my heart beats steady and strong, like footsteps walking away from a door that no longer leads home. A whole month passes with these push-and-pull awkward messages and avoidance. However, on Tuesday morning, the click of Madison's heels against the preschool linoleum sends tiny earthquakes through my stomach. She stands in my classroom doorway, perfect posture and pressed pantsuit, while 3 mothers hover near the cubbies pretending not to listen. Claire, this behavior has to stop. Madison's voice carries across the room like a dinner party announcement. Mom and Dad are worried sick about you. I continue arranging craft supplies for the afternoon session, counting out glue sticks with steady hands. 1, 2, 3. The ritual of preparation anchors me as Madison's words float past. Did you hear me? She steps closer, wafting expensive perfume through my careful world of washable paint and construction paper. Mom called your principal about your instability. My fingers pause on the 4th glue stick. 5, 6. And Daddy talked to Mrs. Bedford about your suspicious activities. Madison lowers her voice to a stage whisper that probably carries to the parking lot. All those supplies being delivered? The late night noise? Sarah appears in the doorway behind Madison, art smock already spattered with the day's first painting disaster. Her eyes meet mine with quiet concern. I have a business license, I say, my voice surprising me with its calm. Mrs. Bedford helped me file the paperwork last month. Madison blinks, her perfect lipstick twisting. A business? You mean those little fairy parties you're planning? That's not a real. I have excellent references. I open my teaching portfolio, sliding out the principal's latest evaluation. Outstanding marks in creativity, classroom management, parent communication. Would you like to see my credentials? This isn't about your job. Madison's voice rises half an octave. This is about family loyalty, about watching your own niece while I network with. I'd love to have Ellie visit during business hours. I pull out one of my new business cards, designed with watercolor wings and silver edging. My rates are very reasonable for regular clients. Rates? Madison snatches the card, crumpling its corner. You'd charge your own sister? After everything we've done for? The fairy workshop is beautiful. Mrs. Chen steps forward from the cubbies, ending her pretense of not listening. My Katie hasn't stopped talking about her birthday party since she saw the photos. Is next Saturday still available, Claire? I smile, retrieving my appointment book. The morning slot just opened up. Perfect. Mrs. Chen pulls out her checkbook. Katie wants the full princess package with the bubble machine. Madison's face flushes as Mrs. Chen writes the deposit check. 2 more mothers drift over, phones already out to check their calendars. The room fills with cheerful planning while Madison stands frozen, the crumpled business card cutting into her palm. I have a class starting in 10 minutes. I accept Mrs. Chen's check with a quiet thank you. Was there anything else you needed? Madison's heels strike the floor like hammer blows as she storms out. My phone buzzes seconds later with her text. Mom and Dad will hear about this betrayal. I slip the phone into my desk drawer without responding. Sarah helps me arrange the last of the glue sticks while the mothers book their parties. The afternoon sun paints shadows through my classroom windows, turning ordinary corkboards and crayon drawings into the borders of an enchanted realm. That evening, I transformed the basement Mrs. Bedford offered into my first real workshop. Robert from the third grade room helps me carry in shelves and supplies, telling stories about his own family's dramatic reactions when he opened his photography studio. "They'll adjust," he says, hanging strings of fairy lights along the ceiling. "Or they won't. Either way, you'll be teaching those kids something more valuable than spelling." "What's that?" "That it's okay to believe in magic." He plugs in the lights, creating constellations across the concrete walls. "And that it's okay to believe in yourself." Sarah arrives with pizza and her marketing expertise, turning my simple website into something professional. 3 more bookings ping through before midnight. I store my first business check in a new accordion file labeled with today's date. My phone fills with family messages I don't read. Instead, I focus on crafting perfect fairy wings from iridescent fabric and strong wire that will survive countless games of make-believe. Each pair takes an hour to complete, but the work fills me with a peace I haven't felt in years. Later that week, I speak at a teachers' conference about creative play in early education. My voice doesn't shake once. The workshop space draws admiring comments from other teachers. My calendar fills with bookings through summer. Madison's texts shift from threats to carefully casual questions about my sudden success. Mother emails about investment opportunities. Father's secretary calls about family business ventures. I archive their messages without response. The basement workshop expands as Mrs. Bedford offers adjacent storage space at a fraction of market rate. Sarah transitions to part-time assistant, bringing order to my creative chaos. My first month's earnings match my teaching salary. At night, I sleep without waking to check my phone for family emergencies. The fairy wings hanging in my workshop catch moonlight through the basement windows, casting shadows like promises on the wall. Until Ellie's birthday appears on my calendar, circled in sparkly purple ink from months ago. I trace the date with my fingertip, remembering her solemn request for the most magical party ever before all this began. The choice I make next will change everything between us. But as I reach for my phone, I realize my hands aren't trembling anymore. A month later, everything was ready for Ellie's birthday. The glitter swirls through shafts of late afternoon sunlight as I put the finishing touches on a paper flower arch. My fingers brush the delicate petals, each one hand painted in watercolor shades of pink and violet. The basement workshop smells of fresh paint and possibility. "Perfect," I whisper, stepping back to survey my handiwork. Twinkling lights weave between gauzy fabric panels draped from the ceiling. Handcrafted toadstools dot the floor, their spots gleaming with metallic paint. A reading nook nestles beneath fabric branches, stuffed with velvet pillows and worn copies of fairy tales. The invitation sits on my workbench, addressed in careful calligraphy. "Princess Ellie, your presence is requested at a special fairy aunt adventure." 2 smaller envelopes beside it bear the names of her closest friends from preschool. Their mothers had been surprisingly eager when I called, especially after I mentioned professional liability insurance. My phone buzzes. Madison's name flashes on the screen, followed by a burst of texts. "What is this party invitation Ellie found in her backpack? You can't just plan things without asking me. She's crying because I said no. You're undermining my authority? Call me now." I set the phone face down on the bench, my hand steady. 3 years ago, when I started this small business and no one believed in me, those messages would have sent me scrambling to apologize. Now they roll past like autumn leaves in a stream. The phone rings. Mother's number. "Claire, dear." Her voice drips honey over thorns. Madison's quite upset. You know how these elaborate gestures look, as if you're trying to buy Ellie's affection. "It's a party, Mother, nothing more. Your father mentioned something about tenant regulations, special permits for children's events." "Already handled." I trace the edge of my business license, framed and hanging beside the door. "Would you like the permit numbers?" Silence stretches between us like pulled taffy. Then, "Madison says she'll bring Ellie. She'll stay to supervise, of course." "Of course," I smile, knowing she can hear it. "I've got plenty of fairy wings for grown-ups too." The day arrives in a burst of giggles and gasps. Ellie freezes in the doorway, her eyes wide as saucers. "Aunt Claire," she breathes, "it's real magic." Madison hovers behind her, lips pressed thin. Her designer blazer looks stiff and strange among the sparkles and soft fabrics. Well, it's creative. Ellie's friends tumble in, their mothers lingering to snap photos. "This is incredible," one whispers, slipping me her business card. "My older daughter's birthday is next month. Do you have any openings?" We paint fairy faces with shimmering colors. I teach them to make wands, weaving ribbons and bells around twigs collected from the park. Madison watches from a corner, her phone forgotten in her lap, something shifting behind her eyes. "Again," Ellie shouts as I sprinkle fairy dust over their outstretched hands. "Please, Aunt Claire, just one more time." The photos appear on local parents' social media before the glitter settles. "Magical afternoon with Miss Claire. Best party ever. Finally, someone who understands what children need." Madison's comment appears beneath them. "So proud of my creative sister." The words sit strange and shiny, like new pennies. She follows with a private message. "The PTA is planning a spring carnival. Would you if you're not too busy." Mother's email arrives that evening, formal as a wedding invitation. "Sunday dinner. Your father and I think it's time to discuss some family business opportunities." I read it twice, searching for the familiar undertone of manipulation. It's there, faint as a watermark, but something else threads through her words, something that sounds almost like respect. The basement holds its magic in the quiet after everyone leaves. A forgotten wand sparkles on a toadstool. A half-empty cup of fairy punch catches the last light through the window. I pick up Ellie's thank you note, covered in wobbly hearts. "You make everything beautiful, Aunt Claire." My phone chimes with another message from Madison. I almost ignore it, but something makes me look. "I'm sorry," it says. Just that. No excuses, no demands. I'm sorry. I sit in my reading nook, surrounded by the world I've created. The old fears whisper. They'll try to take control. They'll twist this into another way to use you. They'll never really change. But maybe, just maybe, they're learning. Maybe watching their carefully ordered world crumble under fairy dust has shaken something loose. Maybe there's magic enough here to transform more than just an old basement. I pick up my phone and type, "Sunday dinner sounds nice, I'll bring dessert." After all, I think, sliding the business card into my planner, sometimes the bravest thing isn't walking away. Sometimes it's giving people space to surprise you. On Sunday that week, the mahogany dining table stretched before me like a battlefield. Mother spent 3 hours polishing it this morning. I can smell the lemon oil from where I sit, my portfolio pressed against my ribs like armor. The chandelier throws precise patterns across the lacquered surface, creating shadows that dance whenever someone shifts in their chair. I count the faces around the table. 8 where there should have been 4. Mother, father, Madison, and 5 surprise guests, including the Hendersons who run royal events planning. Their matching coral blazers flash like warning signs. "More wine, Claire?" Mother lifts the crystal decanter. Her silver bracelet catches the light, sending Morse code signals across the wall. "Danger, danger, danger." "No, thank you." I keep my voice steady, though my stomach churns. The first course sits untouched before me, butternut squash soup garnished with fresh sage from Mother's garden. The spoon remains perfectly aligned with the bowl's rim. Madison leans forward, pearls swinging. "I have the most wonderful news, Claire Bear." Her smile stretches wide, showing too many teeth. "Remember that charity event I mentioned? For the children's hospital? Well, I told them all about your adorable little parties. They're absolutely thrilled to have you handle everything." The soup ripples as Mother sets down her wine glass too firmly. "That's why we invited Tom and Barbara." She nods toward the Hendersons. "They've agreed to mentor you, help turn your cute hobby into something legitimate." Father slides a leather folder across the polished wood. "We've drawn up the paperwork. 40% ownership split between your mother and me. 30% to Madison for managing the business side, and 30% for you to continue the creative work you enjoy. The children love you," Barbara Henderson adds, her voice dripping honey over steel. "But you need professionals to handle the real business decisions." My hands should shake, they don't. 3 years ago, they would have trembled like autumn leaves. But that was before I learned to track every dollar, document every manipulation, build evidence like a wall between me and their expectations. I set my portfolio on the table. The dark blue leather looks stark against the cream tablecloth. Thank you for your concern about my business. The words come out calm, measured. I brought something to share as well. Mother's eyes narrow at my tone. Madison's smile flickers. I open the portfolio, removing a stack of pristine papers. First, the complete record of funds borrowed by Madison over 3 years. $9,000 with dates, amounts, and her promises of repayment. I place it before Father. The documented hours of emergency childcare, calculated at standard rates. This goes to Mother. And finally, my current business financials, client testimonials, and projected growth for the next 2 quarters. The room falls silent except for the tick of Mother's antique clock. I'm already properly licensed and insured. I meet Barbara Henderson's gaze. My liability coverage exceeds industry standards. I have contracts with 3 venues and a waiting list through December. Madison's face flushes. But the charity event? I never agreed to it. I turn to her. You didn't ask. You simply assumed. Like you assumed I'd always be available to watch Ellie, always have money to lend, always put your needs first. Now see here. Father's voice rises as he shoves back from the table. We're trying to help you build something respectable. No. The word rings clear as crystal. You're trying to control something that's already successful without your help. Something that makes you uncomfortable because it proves you were wrong about me. Mother presses her lips into a bloodless line. Claire Elizabeth Foster, you are being extremely ungrateful. I'm being honest. I pull out one final document. These are my terms for future family relationships. No financial entanglements, ever. Scheduled time with Ellie that won't be canceled for your convenience, Madison. Public acknowledgement of my legitimate career and respect for my choices going forward. Madison's eyes fill with tears, real ones for once. You don't understand. I see how Ellie looks at you, how she talks about your magical parties. I was jealous. My own daughter likes you better than me. No, I soften my voice. Ellie loves you completely. She just wishes you saw her the way I do someone worth showing up for. Mother stares at her untouched soup. The silence stretches like pulled taffy, sweet and dangerous. Father slams his hand on the table. Wine glasses rattle. This isn't about business at all, is it? This is about you trying to embarrass this family, make us look foolish in front of our friends. I stand, smoothing my skirt. The house key burns in my pocket, the one Mother gave me when I turned 16, telling me it meant I was finally grown up. I place it gently beside my soup spoon. You're right, it's not about business. I gather my portfolio. It's about choosing to believe in myself as much as my 4-year-old students believe in fairy magic. It's about finally understanding that love shouldn't require me to be smaller than I am. The chandelier light catches Mother's tears, turning them to diamonds. Madison's shoulders shake. Father's face darkens like a thundercloud. But for the first time in 32 years, their reactions don't reach inside me and rearrange my organs. I walk to the door, my heels clicking against the hardwood. The sound echoes like applause, like permission, like freedom. Behind me, someone whispers my name. I don't turn around. Sometimes loving yourself means walking away, even when other people are crying. Sometimes growing up means leaving your key on the table and your family behind, knowing that if they ever truly want to find you, they'll have to meet you as an equal first. The door closes behind me with a quiet click. In the driveway, crickets sing their evening chorus. A warm breeze carries the scent of Mother's roses, the ones I helped her plant when I was 12, believing that creating beautiful things together meant she saw the beauty in me. I start my car, back out of the driveway, and point myself toward home. Not the home they wanted me to have, but the one I built for myself, full of glitter and finger paintings and the magnificent chaos of being exactly who I am. And 3 years later, these paintings will be completed. 3 years later, the morning sunlight streams through the tall windows of my new studio, catching specks of glitter that float like fairy dust in the air. A rainbow of organza wings lines the far wall, each pair handcrafted for upcoming parties. Sarah arranges supplies while Jenny, my newest assistant, sorts through a stack of booking requests. We're completely full through September, Jenny announces, her pencil tapping against the scheduling book. Should I start a waiting list? My fingers trace the edge of a silver-tipped wing as warmth spreads through my chest. 3 years ago, I sat in my parents' pristine living room, clutching a cartoon self-help book. Now my business employs 3 people, and the only glitter on my hands is the kind I choose to wear. The wall behind my desk blooms with thank you notes. Dear Miss Claire, thank you for making me feel like a real fairy princess. You helped Sophia believe in magic again. Each card represents a child whose imagination found safe harbor here. My phone buzzes. A text from Madison. Ellie hopes you'll still come to her school art fair tomorrow, no pressure. The absence of manipulation in her words still surprises me. Our relationship changed slowly, like ice melting in spring. First came the anger, then the awkward silence. But after I held firm to my boundaries, something shifted. Now when Madison asks for help, she accepts no as a complete sentence. The community college called yesterday about teaching another course on childhood creativity. Last semester's students still email me about their classroom successes. One photo shows a reading nook transformed into a hobbit hole, complete with a round green door. Another displays a science center reimagined as an explorer's outpost. Claire? Sarah's voice pulls me back. The conference organizers want to know if you'll keynote again next spring. Last year's speech terrified me. Standing before hundreds of educators, my voice shook as I began. But when I described how imagination creates sanctuary for struggling children, the words flowed like water. The standing ovation afterward still feels surreal. Tell them yes, I answer, surprising myself with the lack of hesitation. A knock at the studio door reveals Linda, my mother, holding a newspaper. I saw your interview, she says, hovering in the doorway. Her silver hair catches the light, reminding me of Christmas tinsel. About the scholarship fund for early childhood education students. The familiar tension creeps into my shoulders, but I breathe through it. Linda still struggles to understand my choices, but she's learning. Last week, she forwarded an article about successful women entrepreneurs without a single critical comment. Would you like some tea? I offer. Jenny just made a fresh pot. Linda perches carefully on a paint-splattered stool, somehow maintaining perfect posture. Her eyes drift to the wall of wings, lingering on a pair spelled with fresh copper paint. These are quite artistic, she manages. From Linda, that's practically a standing ovation. The scholarship announcement spreads across her lap. My small foundation will help future teachers afford their degrees without working 2 jobs like I did. The photos show my workshop during last weekend's mentoring session, where Amy, a young woman leaving her controlling family, learned to write business plans between crafting sessions. You've built something remarkable, Linda says softly, surprising us both. After she leaves, I unlock my office cabinet and pull out that old self-help book. Its pages burst with pressed flowers and notes from children. Birthday card scraps mark favorite passages, not about growing up, but about growing strong. Tonight, I'm adding something special. A photo of Ellie at last month's Christmas gathering, beaming as she hands me a handmade card covered in wobbly stars. My niece's art now decorates my office wall, right next to her mother's first genuine thank you note. The inscription I wrote years ago still graces the inside cover. Growing up isn't about changing who you are, it's about finally standing up for who you've always been. Standing at my window, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of possibility, I understand what that younger, uncertain Claire couldn't. Sometimes the most powerful magic isn't in fairy wings or glitter. Sometimes it's in the quiet strength of choosing your own path, even when that path sparkles. I place the book on its shelf, next to my business licenses and teaching certificates. The studio lights dim automatically, but I don't need them anymore. I've learned to trust myself in the dark. As I lock up, my phone chimes with another text from Madison. Thank you for showing Lee it's okay to be herself. I smile, slipping the phone into my pocket without feeling obligated to respond immediately. The evening air wraps around me like a familiar shawl as I walk to my car. Tomorrow brings another art fair, another chance to support my niece, another opportunity to show children they can soar on wings of their own making. And I'm ready for every moment of it. The grandfather clock in the corner ticks like a heartbeat gone wrong, too slow, too deliberate. I sit at our kitchen table, my fingers tracing the familiar scratch marks from 17 years of family dinners. The yellow cake before me lists slightly to one side. A homemade creation my foster mother Jean still insists on making even though I'm 20 today. Jean's hands tremble as she arranges 20 blue candles in a crooked circle. Her wedding ring catches the afternoon light streaming through our kitchen window. Dad Gregory stands beside her in his charcoal suit, the one reserved for funerals and his quarterly court appearances as a character witness for Dr. Hale's foundation. "Happy birthday, Maya," Gregory says, his smile tight at the corners. The words hang in the stagnant Midwest air between us. Neither of them has looked me directly in the eyes all day. "Thank you," I answer, watching Jean fuss with the lighter, her third attempt to create a steady flame. The silence that follows feels rehearsed, as if they've been practicing this moment for weeks. Gregory clears his throat, straightening his Tia nervous habit I've cataloged since childhood. "Maya, there's something we need to tell you now that you're 20. Jean stops lighting candles, 5 still unlit. Her eyes dart to Gregory, a silent question passing between them. "We've waited until we thought you were ready," he continues. Jean twists her wedding ring, the gold band spinning like a washer around her finger. The action speaks louder than any words she might offer. "I'll get it," she murmurs, disappearing into the hallway. The floorboards creak beneath her quick steps. I wait, maintaining the neutral expression I've perfected through years of careful observation. When Jean returns, she's dragging a worn suitcase, the ancient Samsonite, with the broken wheel that hasn't seen use since before I can remember. "You were adopted, Maya," Gregory states, voice flat like he's reading from an invisible script. "You came to us when you were 3. Jean slides an envelope across the worn oak table, pushing it past the tilting cake until it stops inches from my hands. I don't reach for it immediately. "There's $400 in there," she says softly, "and the address of a hostel in the city. They have monthly rates." Gregory adjusts his tie again. "We fulfilled our obligation to the state. You're an adult now, and we think it's best if you start your own life," Jean finishes, her voice cracking on the final word. I look at the envelope, then at the faces I've studied for 17 years, searching for reflections of myself. I've never found any. I wait an extra beat before speaking, watching discomfort grow in their posture. "Is there anything else you need to tell me about Camille Mercer?" The color drains from Gregory's face so quickly it's as if someone pulled a plug. Jean's coffee cup slips from her grasp, shattering against the hardwood floor, dark liquid splashing across her sensible beige shoes. "How did you—" Gregory starts, then stops, his lawyer's instinct for damage control kicking in. 2 months ago, I was searching for Christmas decorations in our garage when I found a metal storage box with a broken lock. Inside, beneath tax records and property deeds, lay a birth certificate with a name I'd never seen before. Maya Claire Mercer. Mother, Dr. Camille Elizabeth Mercer. Father, unknown. For weeks afterward, I spent my afternoons in the public library, searching newspaper archives and public records. The microfiche machine became my closest confidant as I found the newspaper clipping about Dr. Camille Mercer's dangerous delusions regarding experiments at Stonemeyer Institute, where Gregory once worked as chief financial officer. "I'm going to pack," I tell them, standing from the table. The cake sits forgotten, its candles a mix of lit and unlit, wax beginning to drip onto the yellow frosting. In my bedroom, I methodically fold clothes into a backpack I purchased weeks ago. Through the thin walls, I hear their whispered argument in the hallway, Jean's voice rising in distress, Gregory's harsher tones cutting her off. Dinner passes in uncomfortable silence. Jean keeps glancing at me, opening her mouth as if to speak, then looking away. Gregory studies his plate like it contains answers to questions he doesn't want asked. I pause at my bedroom door one last time, committing to memory the faded floral wallpaper, the bookshelf filled with carefully selected classics, the window that never quite closed in winter. When I walk out the front door, backpack over one shoulder and the address of Pinewood Hostel in my pocket, Gregory offers to drive me. "No," I say simply, and begin walking down the maple-lined street without looking back. The suitcase they packed stays behind, along with their version of my story. But I'm taking the truth with me. The Pinewood hostel smells like discount pine cleaner and decades of cigarette smoke. My room 12 by 14 feet with water stains mapping the ceiling costs $30 a night. At this rate, the money my foster parents gave me will last less than 2 weeks. I pin another newspaper clipping to the wall. The collection grows daily. Yellowed headlines and grainy photographs spread across the faded floral wallpaper like an infection. At the center hangs a photograph of Dr. Camille Mercer, from a medical journal, me mother's face, serious and determined. My face, with 17 years of different choices. The night manager knocks twice before entering, even though the door has no lock. "Another late night, huh?" Vince asks, leaning against the doorframe. His eyes drift over my wall of evidence without curiosity. In places like Pinewood, people learn not to ask questions. "Just checking you're alive. Been in here 3 days straight." "I'm fine." I fold the article I was reading. "Thanks for the extra blanket." He nods, lingering another moment before leaving. The door doesn't close properly. Nothing works right at Pinewood, which makes it perfect. No one expects anything from a place already falling apart. I return to my timeline, tracing red yarn between pushpins. Gregory Collins, Chief Financial Officer for the Hale Foundation, 1998, 2005. Dr. Martin Hale, founder of Stonemeyer Institute, current board chairman of 6 hospitals across the Midwest. Dr. Lawrence Whitman, the psychiatrist who signed my mother's commitment papers 3 days after she filed a formal complaint about experimental treatments at Stonemeyer. The library's microfiche machine has become my closest companion. Mrs. Delaney, the head librarian with arthritic hands and sharp eyes, no longer asks what I'm researching. Yesterday, she placed a sealed envelope beside my station without comment. Inside, her handwritten list of archived medical board complaints from 2000-2005. 5 names highlighted, all women, all committed within weeks of filing complaints against Stonemeyer Institute or Dr. Hale. My mother wasn't the first, just the one who got closest to exposing them. The desk in my hostel room disappears beneath stacks of photocopies and handwritten notes. I've created my own filing system, ILO cards for financial records. Blue for medical documents, green for personal connections. The pattern emerges in stark relief. Gregory Collins personally oversaw the financial arrangements for at least 3 research employees who were institutionalized after raising concerns. My fingers brush the official adoption papers, stamped, signed, and processed with remarkable speed. The court records show minimal investigation into my background. No attempt to locate relatives. No waiting period. Gregory and Jean Collins became my parents with suspicious efficiency. The same month, Gregory received a bonus equal to a year's salary. I wasn't saved. I was silenced. My stomach growls, but I ignore it. I've been existing on vending machine snacks and library drinking fountain water. The money needs to last, and hunger is just another distraction. At the courthouse, Millie Henderson slips me an access card while pretending to explain the public records system. The retired clerk's voice drops to a whisper. "3rd floor, records room B. That card won't register in the system. You have 30 minutes before security does rounds." I find it in the supposedly sealed files, quarterly payments from a shell corporation to the Collins household coded as dependent care support. The payments continued until last month. My 20th birthday marked the end of their obligation. I traced the paper trail through medical files, watching my mother's credentials vanish one by one. Her medical license suspended pending review. Her published research withdrawn with vague allegations of misconduct. Her academic positions terminated. A systematic erasure executed with terrifying thoroughness. The librarian finds me late Thursday afternoon, her lips pressed into a thin line. She slides a worn folder across the table without meeting my eyes. "This shouldn't exist anymore," she murmurs. "They requested all copies be destroyed during the investigation. I kept one. Been waiting for someone to ask the right questions." Inside, the original whistleblower statement from Dr. Camille Mercer, detailing experimental treatments on female patients diagnosed with oppositional personality disorders or hysterical tendencies, patients who questioned authority, women who refused to comply, treatments designed to create docility and acceptance of established hierarchies. In my room at Pinewood, I unfold one of Gregory's donation envelopes from the Hale Foundation. The return address sits like an accusation in blue ink. The same logo appears on my mother's commitment papers. The same signature Gregory Collins authorizing financial arrangements for Dr. Camille Mercer's indefinite therapeutic residency. Mrs. Henderson finds me in the library basement 3 days later, her arthritis-gnarled hands twisting nervously. "They're not in the system," she whispers, glancing toward the stairs. "When Stonemeyer closed, some patients were transferred. Special cases, not in any public database." She slides a hand-drawn map across the table. A winding road through dense woodland. An unmarked turnoff. A facility named Rock Hollow Behavioral Center. "Security badge only," she adds. "Minimal staff, maximum containment." That night, I drive my second-hand Honda along the unmarked access road. Tree branches scrape against the windows like warning fingers. After 3 miles of densely wooded isolation, the facility appears a sprawling stone structure with narrow windows and a chain-link perimeter topped with razor wire. A single guard booth monitors the entrance. A discreet sign identifies it as Rock Hollow Behavioral Center. Private property. No trespassing. Is she in there? Has she been there all these years? Just 2 hours from the house where I grew up? I park on the shoulder a quarter-mile away, using binoculars to study the building. Cameras positioned at every corner. Staff parking for only 20 cars. A loading dock where a pharmacy delivery truck unloads unmarked containers. A facility designed not for treatment, but for containment. My mother is behind those walls. I'm certain of it. The question isn't whether I'll get her out. The question is how far I'll go to dismantle the system that put her there and the people who've built their lives on her silence. Starting with the man I called father for 17 years. The bathroom mirror of my hostel room reflects a stranger. Chestnut hair dye stains the cheap porcelain sink. I practice my cover story under my breath, while massaging color into my scalp with gloved hands. Angela Weber, social work student, thesis on long-term care environments. The words feel stiff on my tongue despite 2 weeks of rehearsal. My forged student ID and visitor application rest on the countertop beside a spiral notebook with unnecessarily detailed research questions. People rarely question those who appear official and boring. The drive to Rock Hollow takes 40 minutes on winding back roads. The facility emerges from dense woodland like something from a Victorian nightmare, a sprawling brick structure with narrow windows and a wrought iron gate that seems designed more to keep people in than out. My pulse hammers against my ribs as I approach the visitor entrance, but my face reveals nothing. The receptionist barely glances at my credentials, her hollow eyes scanning my forged documents with mechanical indifference. "Purpose of visit?" she asks, voice flat as week old soda. "Research interview with patient Camille Mercer for my thesis on institutional care environments." I hand her the official, looking approval letter I created, complete with forged signatures. She stamps a visitor pass and buzzes me through without a second look. The antiseptic smell hits me, first bleach and industrial cleaner masking something sour underneath. Shuffling feet echo down the corridor in steady rhythm as patients move between scheduled activities, flanked by attendants with clipboard charts and bored expressions. The visiting area consists of scattered tables bolted to the floor, each separated enough to prevent easy conversation between groups. A guard stands by the only exit, keys jangling at his belt. And then I see her. My mother sits by the window, frail hands folded in her lap, wispy hair pulled back in a loose knot. Sunlight filters through wire-reinforced glass, illuminating dust particles that dance around her like miniature constellations. Her vacant gaze follows nothing in particular. My research hadn't prepared me for how small she would look. I approach slowly, setting my notebook on the table with deliberate calm. "Dr. Mercer? I'm Angela Weber, Thank you for agreeing to speak with me. Her eyes don't focus immediately. The medication, I realize. They keep her drifting between reality and somewhere else. I sit across from her, acutely aware of the guard checking his watch. Timing matters. According to the schedule I memorized, medication rounds happen at 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock. It's 11:30, the window when some patients experience brief clarity. I'm researching long-term care environments, I continue, loud enough for anyone listening. Then, leaning forward slightly, my voice dropping to barely above a whisper. Maya. My name is Maya. Her eyes sharpen suddenly, pupils contracting, as if someone adjusted her focus. Her fingers tremble as they reach toward my face, stopping inches short of contact. They said you would forget me, she whispers, voice rough from disuse. That you'd be safer that way. The simple recognition splinters something in my chest. 16 years of separation dissolved by 5 quiet words. I remember enough, I answer, opening my notebook to create a shield from watching eyes. Camille's gaze darts to the guard, then back to me. We have 20 minutes before Lawrence makes his rounds. He thinks I'm responding well to the new dosage. I nod, keeping my expression neutral despite the storm building behind my ribs. Tell me what happened. Behavioral conditioning experiments at Stonemeyer. She murmurs, face arranged in the pleasant mask of the institutionalized. Hale called them breakthrough treatments for treatment-resistant patients. She describes mental tortures disguised as therapy, sleep deprivation, isolation, experimental drugs without consent. The careful selection of difficult woman single mothers, former addicts, abuse survivors whose complaints would be easily dismissed. I was department head of psychiatry. I found the files. Patient suicides classified as treatment failures. Her words come faster now, decades of silenced truth rushing out. I confronted Martin. Filed reports. 3 days later, she was committed, declared delusional by colleagues she had trusted. Your father arranged everything, she says, and for a moment confusion clouds my expression before I realize she means Gregory Collins. He handled the financial transfers, the paperwork for your custody arrangement, called it protective intervention. My pen hovers above my notebook, trembling slightly. The man I called father for 17 years personally orchestrated my mother's imprisonment and my appropriation. I notice Camille's right hand sliding beneath the thin cushion of her chair. She extracts a small notebook bound in faded blue fabric, passing it beneath the table. I've documented everything, she whispers. 17 years of treatments, staff rotations, medication protocols. They assume the drugs make me compliant. They never searched hard enough. The journal disappears into my bag as I stare at this woman who never stopped fighting despite chemical restraints and isolation, who kept her mind intact through systematic attempts to destroy it. There's a nurse, Camille continues. Margot Bell. She left last year but still visits her former patients. Officially, she brings cookies and magazines. Unofficially, she knows what they're doing here. I memorize the name, already planning my approach. How do I find her? Service entrance, Thursdays at 4 o'clock. Tell her I sent you. Camille's eyes flick toward the hallway where a medication card appears. Our time's almost up. I rise, gathering my notebook with steady hands despite the earthquake reshaping my understanding of everything. I'll come back. I know, she says, her expression softening for the first time. You have my eyes. 3 days later, I stand by the service entrance of Rock Hollow, collar turned up against autumn wind that carries the scent of approaching rain. At precisely 4 o'clock, a woman in her 50s approaches, carrying a basket covered with checkered cloth. Margot Bell? I ask quietly. She freezes, keys halfway to the door, wariness evident in her rigid posture. Camille Mercer sent me. The wariness transforms to fear, then resignation. I've waited years for someone to ask the right questions, she finally says. But not here. Meet me at Lakeside Diner in an hour. At the diner, over burnt coffee, Margot places a flash drive beside my saucer. Medication records. unauthorized protocols, security schedules. Her voice barely carries over the clattering dishes. Your mother wasn't the only one, but she was the one they feared most. I slide it into my pocket, fear and fury battling beneath my controlled expression. There's more, she says, pushing a manila folder across the table. These were harder to access. Inside are pediatric medical records, my medical records years of preventative treatments administered during routine checkups. Experimental compounds disguised as vitamins and vaccines, authorized with Gregory Collins's signature on every form. Understanding crystallizes like ice in my veins. My unexplained childhood illnesses. The monthly doctor visits. The pills every morning with breakfast that Jean insisted were just to keep you healthy, sweetheart. There are others, Margot says quietly. Children of whistleblowers, all placed in protective custody with carefully selected guardians, all receiving specialized medical care. I stare at pages documenting the chemical alteration of my developing brain, the careful monitoring for signs of maternal instability patterns. Years of being medicated against an inheritance of courage they labeled madness. The rage that rises is cold, and precises a surgeon's scalpel rather than a forest fire. This ends now, I tell Margot, voice steady despite the seismic shift occurring within me. All of it. As I walk back to my car, I make a silent vow to the mother who never stopped fighting, and to the child I was who never knew why her mind felt slightly foggy, why her dreams were always just beyond reach. They hadn't just stolen my mother. They had methodically attempted to erase her from me, cell by cell, synapse by synapse. They had failed. The bathroom mirror at Pinewood Hostel has a crack running from corner to corner. I trace it with my finger, watching my reflection split into the person I was raised to be and the person I'm becoming. 3 weeks living in this place, and I've claimed the corner room as my war room. Behind me, the back wall blooms with a collage of evidence and newspaper clippings, photocopied documents, handwritten notes spiderwebbing between them with red string. My makeshift investigation board has consumed nearly every bit of my remaining cash, but money becomes meaningless when measured against 16 years of stolen time. I step back, scanning the timeline I've constructed. Whistleblowers at Stonemaier silenced with disturbing regularity. Psychiatric commitments following allegations. Children placed in protective custody with financially compensated guardians. Each thread connects back to the Hale Foundation, and to Gregory Collins, the man who called himself my father while cashing checks for keeping me quiet. Camille's coded journal sits open on the bed beside my laptop. I've spent every night for a week transcribing her deliberate scrawl, deciphering the substitution cipher she developed to document everything. Medication dosages increased before board inspections. Patient transfers in the middle of the night. Staff members who questioned protocols suddenly reassigned or terminated. The hostel radiator clanks and hisses, pushing tepid air into the room. I check my watch, almost time. Outside the diner window, traffic crawls through the afternoon rain. I chose this place specifically crowded enough for anonymity, noisy enough to mask conversation, 3 exits in case of trouble. The woman across from me stirs her coffee for the 3rd time without drinking it. I tried to tell this story 10 years ago, Tessa Monroe says finally. Her eyes, sharp despite the fatigue lining her face, scan the documents I've placed between us. A former investigative journalist blacklisted after pursuing corruption allegations against politically connected figures, Tessa was my 7th attempt at finding the right ally. The previous 6 believed me, but lacked either the courage or the platform to help. What happened, I ask, though I already know from my research. Sudden tax audit. Mysterious computer failures that wiped my research. Sources who denied ever speaking to me. She taps a finger against the photo of Dr. Hale. They didn't just discredit me, they erased me professionally. Yet here you are. Something flickers across her face, not quite a smile. Some stories never let you go, even after they destroy you. I push Camille's photocopied journal pages toward her. This time, we have evidence they can't erase. She studies the pages, her professional mask slipping for just a moment. Your mother was brilliant. Even heavily medicated, she built a case. We spend the next hour developing our distribution plan. Multiple outlets, never just one. Independent podcasts focusing on medical ethics and institutional abuses. Former prosecutors now working in patient advocacy. Journalists operating outside traditional media structures. Individual packages, Tessa explains, sketching a diagram on her napkin. Each one gets unique documentation with separate access codes. No single target has everything. A deadman switch protocol, I add, understanding immediately. She nods, something like respect crossing her features. We're not just telling the truth. We're making it too loud to bury. I return to the hostel after dark to find Gregory standing in the shabby lobby, his charcoal suit incongruous against the worn furniture. The night manager looks almost apologetic as I approach. Maya, Gregory says, his lawyer voice perfectly modulated despite the tension visible in his jaw. We need to talk. I lead him to the common room, deliberately choosing the space with the security camera in the corner. He notices my strategic positioning, his eyes narrowing slightly. Your mother had certain unstable genetics, he begins, straightening his tie. We've protected you from that heritage, these delusions you're pursuing. How did you find me? I interrupt. His momentary silence tells me everything. They're watching, tracking. The police contacted me today, I tell him calmly. They're concerned about my behavior. Interesting timing. His expression doesn't change, but his knuckles whiten as he grips his leather portfolio. That evening, a text arrives from Margot. Security doubled at Rock Hollow. Night transfer scheduled. They're moving patients, hiding evidence. Someone accessed my library account yesterday, according to the automated email notification. My carefully constructed timeline suddenly seems too slow, too methodical. 3 days later, it begins. The Medical Ethics Podcast releases their interview with an anonymous insider alongside Camille's audio recordings describing the experimental protocols. By noon, screenshots circulate across social media. Local reporters start making inquiries. Anonymous tips from former employees begin trickling in, validating our claims. The hostel manager stops me at the stairs that evening, voice low. 2 men asking questions about you today. Showed badges but wouldn't leave cards. I text Tessa immediately. We need to accelerate our timeline. By morning, I've relocated to an apartment belonging to Tessa's friend. My few possessions in my backpack. The first major news outlet has picked up the story. The Hale Foundation issues a statement denying all allegations, calling it a coordinated smear campaign. Their denial rings hollow against the gathering wave of evidence we've unleashed. Too many voices speaking at once. Too many documents pointing to the same conclusion. The truth isn't just emerging. It's roaring. I wake to the sound of my burner phone vibrating against the nightstand. The digital clock reads 4:17 a.m. Tessa's name flashes on the screen. It's happening, she says without preamble. Turn on any news channel. I fumble for the remote, my fingers clumsy with sleep and adrenaline. The ancient television in my temporary apartment flickers to life, bathing the room in blue light. The scrolling headline at the bottom of the screen reads, Breaking. Multiple outlets report allegations of patient abuse at Rockalo Behavioral Center. My breath catches. After weeks of careful planning, the synchronized release of evidence packages to 7 different media outlets has worked exactly as intended. The Washington Times has the financial records. Tessa continues, her voice tight with controlled excitement. Channel 9 is running the video footage from Stonemeyer. NPR has 3 former employees on record. I watch as the camera cuts to the steps of the Hale Foundation headquarters. Dr. Martin Hale stands behind a podium, his normally immaculate appearance disheveled. Sweat beads on his forehead despite the morning chill. These allegations are completely unfounded, he stammers, adjusting his tie. The Hale Foundation has a 50-year history of compassionate care. The reporter interrupts. Dr. Hale, can you explain these internal memos authorizing the commitment of Dr. Camille Mercer after she reported experimental protocols at Stonemeyer Institute? The camera zooms in on documents held up for viewers to see. My foster father's signature is clearly visible at the bottom. Gregory Collins, Chief Financial Officer, Hale Foundation. I turn up the volume as the anchor reports. Social media has erupted with the hashtag #RockHollowTruth as former patients begin sharing their experiences. My phone buzzes with an incoming text from an unknown number. State Medical Board just called emergency session for 9 a.m. It's working. Outside, the sky begins to lighten with the first pale hints of dawn. I pull up another news site on my laptop. 3. Rock Hollow administrators have been placed on administrative leave. A congressman from the Oversight Committee is calling for a federal investigation. The system is beginning to crack. I call Margot at exactly 7:05 a.m., following our predetermined schedule. The night staff is in chaos, she reports in a hushed voice. Administration ordered all patient files secured, but security is stretched thin, covering the entrance where reporters are gathering. Tonight, I tell her. We move tonight. 16 hours later, I park 2 blocks from Rock Hollow's service entrance. The evening news reported Gregory Collins' home being searched by police, and Dr. Hale taken in for questioning. The momentum has built faster than we anticipated. Margot meets me at the employee gate, her face taut with nervous energy. She slips me a staff ID badge. I've already processed the discharge papers, she whispers as we walk briskly through service corridors. Filed them yesterday before anyone was watching for unusual activity. The hallways are eerily quiet. Most staff have been pulled to manage the media crisis or deal with the influx of concerned family members calling about patients. Third floor has minimal supervision tonight, Margot explains, swiping her keycard at the elevator. Everybody's either hiding or destroying evidence. The elevator doors slide open on the 3rd floor. My heart pounds against my ribs as we move down the corridor, our footsteps muffled by industrial carpeting. Margot pauses outside room 317, glancing both ways before unlocking the door. Camille sits on the edge of her bed, a small canvas bag packed beside her. Her gray-streaked hair has been neatly combed, and she wears a cardigan I've never seen before over her standard-issue hospital clothes. I knew you'd come today, she says simply. Her eyes so much like my own are clear and focused. The medication schedule changed. They're distracted. I cross the room in 3 steps and take her hands. They're cold but steady. No matter what they did, I tell her, surprised by the steadiness of my own voice, I was always coming back for you. Margot stands watch at the door. 5 minutes till shift change. We need to move. We exit through the same service entrance, Camille walking between us. No alarm sound, no security guards call out. Just the heavy metal door closing behind us with a muted click that sounds remarkably like freedom. The night air wraps around us, crisp and sweet compared to the antiseptic staleness of Rock Hollow. Camille pauses for a moment, tilting her face toward the stars. The Big Dipper, she murmurs. I could only see 1 star from my window, never the whole constellation. In the car, she recites details about my life that she somehow managed to collect and memorize despite years of chemical restraint. You won the 5th grade spelling championship with the word quintessential, she says as we drive away from Rock Hollow. You broke your arm at 12 climbing the maple tree in the backyard. You're allergic to strawberries. Her hand finds mine on the console between us, and I realize she's been collecting these fragments of my life the way prisoners notch marks on walls counting days, preserving sanity. The late-night news plays on the radio. Gregory Collins' reputation is unraveling in real time as reporters uncover his role in multiple improper commitments. Dr. Hale's legal team has issued a statement distancing him from operational decisions. 3 more Rock Hollow administrators have been suspended. The State Attorney General's office announced tonight that a comprehensive investigation into allegations of systematic patient abuse will begin immediately, the announcer states. Meanwhile, Attorneys have filed the first class action lawsuit on behalf of former patients. I switch off the radio. There will be time for justice tomorrow. Tonight is about something else entirely. Camille squeezes my hand. They thought burying the truth would make it disappear, she says softly. They forgot that buried things can grow. The headlights cut through darkness as we drive toward the state line, leaving Rock Hollow behind without a backward glance. Toward a new beginning neither of us dared imagine just weeks ago. Some endings are really just the truth, finally set free. The morning sun spills across our kitchen table, lighting up the crossword puzzle Camille works with steady concentration. A cup of tea cools at her elbow, the steam curling up toward ceiling beams weathered by decades of salt air. After 6 months in this coastal village, our cottage walls have begun to feel less borrowed. 23 across, Camille says, tapping her pencil against the newspaper. 6 letters, what was once lost? Found. I answer without looking up from the toast I'm buttering. Her laugh comes easy now. Nothing like those first weeks after Rock Hollow when laughter emerged rusty and uncertain. You didn't even need the clue. I place her plate beside the crossword. Some answers I just know. Our cottage sits on the edge of town where paved roads surrender to gravel. Windows face east because Camille said she'd spent 16 years unable to track time through natural light. Now she wakes with the sunrise, often before my alarm. Some mornings I find her simply standing by the window, palms pressed against glass, still cool from night air. We use different names now. Not elaborate disguises, just subtle shifts, Catherine for Camille, Marie for Maya. Small deflections while investigations continue without us. The neighbors know us as the quiet mother and daughter who moved in last winter. The aunt at the bakery saves day-old bread for us. The librarian recommends novels with happy endings. The medication withdrawal was hardest. 3 months of tremors and memory gaps, nights when Camille would wake screaming from nightmares she couldn't articulate. I kept careful notes in our shared journal, good days in blue ink, difficult ones in black. The entries grow steadily bluer. Tell me again about my 3rd birthday, I say, watching her hands steady as she writes in 7 across. Camille sets down her pencil. You wore yellow overalls. Insisted on them even though it was November. Her eyes focus on something beyond our kitchen walls. You carried that stuffed rabbit everywhere, Hoppy. Head shoot off one ear. I baked chocolate cupcakes with strawberry frosting because you couldn't decide between the two. You ate the frosting first, then the cake, methodical even then. Each recovered memory feels like restitution. We're building a bridge across 16 years of stolen time, plank by plank. The television murmurs in the corner, volume low. Camille still flinches at sudden noises. The morning news shows Dr. Hale being escorted from his foundation offices, his face shielded by an upraised hand. The headline crawls across the bottom. Investigation expands to 3 states. They found the records in Connecticut, Camille says quietly. I don't ask how she knows. Tessa keeps us informed through secure channels, though we've never told her our location. Her exposé just won a national award. Gregory Collins faces 13 criminal charges. The state medical board has suspended 6 psychiatrist licenses. A congressional hearing on institutional psychiatric abuse begins next month. The notification chime on my laptop sounds from the other room. Camille raises an eyebrow. Another survivor, I explain, retrieving the computer. She's been sending encrypted messages for weeks. Claire Rothman, Camille whispers, eyes widening. She was at Stonemeyer before me. They said she killed herself. Very much alive, I say, turning the screen so she can see the message. You did what I couldn't. We're organizing testimony for the hearings. No pressure to join, but your statement would matter. CR. 53 former patients have connected through our secure channel. Each story echoes parts of Camille's brilliant women who questioned powerful men, then vanished behind diagnoses manufactured to silence them. Later, we walk the shoreline as evening paints everything gold. Camille's steps are stronger now, her frame less fragile. She pulls a photograph from her pocket, the one she kept hidden inside Rock Hollow's library copy of Jane Eyre for 16 years. In it, I sit on her lap, no more than two, both of us laughing at something beyond the camera. I always felt something was missing, I admit, watching waves erase our footprints, even before I found the documents. Camille slips her hand into mine. They could take everything else, but they couldn't erase that.